Hello, hello, all those beautiful faces. I'm Stephanie Edmonds. Welcome to Teaching Liberty. To think free, you have to live free. And that means taking care of your health because you cannot think free and you cannot be truly free if you are addicted to food, if you aren't moving your body regularly, and if you aren't doing really the basic things that we need to do. I know there's like so many fancy plans and regimens and subscription services and supplements, and there's so much out there. It's like a multi-billion-dollar industry. And, if you do that, that's all good. But I think, and this is what's worked for me, and, I'm glad to be friends here with Regina, who's helped guide me along the way, is just getting back to the basics, slowing it down, eating whole foods. And so thank you so much, Regina, for joining me tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I love being here. I love doing these lives with you.
Yeah, and so you have a few great tips for us. I think you said you got 5 tips for us here
Yeah.
tonight about how we can get back to the basics and really, keep it simple, stupid. The old saying for sure applies to our health. I think like one of the main things is we just like overthink it. And then we just like get so caught up that you never even start because you like feel like you have to have everything in place.
Yeah, definitely.
But before we get into that, why don't you just give us a little bit about your background and your certifications and your experience in health and wellness?
Yeah, sure. So, my name is Regina. I am the founder of Your Health, Your Wellness Coaching Services. I've been running the business since 2021. It's really an honor to work with people, trying to get them on the right track. My passion is to make sure that people are living their best healthy lives and, being as independent as possible. And like you said, freedom comes with health, being able to think clearly, and you need to have health to do that. So, my background is I went to IIN, the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. Love their program. And then I really was so into it that I went into their practicum where I was able to sit and I had to take the test to become national board certified. So I am officially a national board certified health and wellness coach and loving every second of it, working with clients regularly and really just honored that they picked me to work with them on their journey.
Right. And like I said, there's certainly things that you can do. You can invest your money into it. And sometimes it's true. Like when you pay for something, it kind of like you're like, oh, I have to do this because I pay for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
sometimes I also feel like it works the other way. It's like there's so many options out there and you don't know where to start, or, you're going to start once your program starts next month or whatever it is. But I feel like, again, just getting back to those basics, and they may be things that we all know, but I think just bringing them to the foreground, to the surface, reminding ourselves and giving ourselves permission just to do those simple things, that it doesn't have to be something fancy.
For
I
sure.
know that really, that I have spent that time, right, where I'm like writing out my workout plan and like what it's going to be, and my meal plan and all that, and then it's like all of a sudden you fall off track, and then you get so down on yourself because you missed a day, or you didn't do your meal plan properly, and it just feels like that then takes everything, like the whole motivation you had to even do it in the first place.
Yeah.
I know you had some good tips for us. So what is, like, we had 5 of them that you said you had prepared for us tonight. So just go ahead. Why don't we talk about the first one you got for us?
The first, before I even jump into my tips, I just want to touch base on what you said about like when you fail on your meal plan or like whatever, it didn't work out. Like it's a journey, so it's okay to fail. Having the intention to put something down on paper is a huge step in the right direction, and we don't have to throw it all away when we get a little off course. That's why we put it down on paper, right? So we have like that map to get us right back to what the plan was. But the tips are, make sure, I think sleep is super important. So whatever's the right amount of sleep for you, usually it's anywhere between 7 to 9 hours. Some people need more, some people need less. But you often hear that it's important to get those hours of sleep. But what's really important is the regularity of that sleep, making sure you have that routine. You're set in bed at those same times, which can be very challenging on the weekends if you want to catch up with family and friends. So I do see how that could be problematic from time to time. But if you could be consistent as possible, it's okay to have those off nights here and there. But getting that regularity is really important. That would be my first tip. My second one would
Hmm.
be,
I never thought about that, the regularity piece of thing. I do think that the biggest thing that people talk about is the hours.
mm-hmm.
And so I know for me, like, for example, last night I was up until like 12:30, and then I was having a hard time get to sleep. And but in my mind I was like, well, I'll just sleep in a few extra, a little bit longer, and I'll be good to go. But what you're saying is that, okay, even if I got the same amount of hours, that because I went to bed later and I got up later, that it can sort of like throw off like my circadian rhythm. Is that
Yeah, and
the
also your body is detoxing certain organs at different times of the evening. So you could be throwing off that whole detoxification process if you're going to bed like 12:30, 1 o'clock. Even if you're getting those 8 hours of sleep, your body is so intuitive. It is brilliant. It is the greatest healer. It knows exactly what to do. And we just have to give it the means necessary to do its job. So
okay?
that's why sleep regularity is also important. I mean, there's a whole slew of things as to why we should be getting regularity in sleep, but I know that's just something like real quick to touch base on.
Is right. Yeah. So maybe like set your phone and set your alarm to help yourself go down. Or
Yeah.
I think even like on your phone, this is something that I've wanted to try, but like I guess I'm like kind of addicted to my phone.
Who is
Uh, don't tell. Is they have that function on your phone where you can like make it hibernate or something like at
okay,
a
yeah.
certain time. I was thinking about trying that, but it's like I don't know. It's like I'm like, oh no, I'll be fine. I don't need to set my phone. I'm totally responsible, and I'll just put it down. Not.
Pick the
Do you,
night you think you'll be most successful in doing that and try it out. If it works, great. If not, there's always like other ways to go about doing it. Like
yeah.
bedtime routines and
Do
stuff.
you think there's something with the blue light on the phone too? Like, like sometimes I wear blue light glasses because blue light certainly affects me, but
Mm-hmm.
I have heard that you shouldn't watch TV or look at your phone like an hour before bed. Do you think that there's like validity to that?
I do think there's validity to that. And I also think back in the day, our TVs were not the same type of technology. It wasn't those LED lights behind those screens. So it might not, I mean, I don't know, but it doesn't seem to have done the same thing because I used to always sleep with TV when I was younger. But, you having a bedtime routine is really important. So even if that routine is like, okay, I'm going to go lay in bed and watch a little bit of TV and then shut it off like an hour before I really want to be asleep, then that's just something you can do. You don't have to like completely throw out every single thing that you love and enjoy. It's just a matter of like nicking away at it little by little until you get there ultimately.
Okay. Little habits at a
Little
time. Little
habits.
habits at a
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
One step at a time. All right, so what do you got next for us? So get sleep, but really focus on the regularity of that sleep. Trying to get to
Mm-hmm.
bed around the same time and wake up around the same time is important. What else is next?
Whole foods, not less foods. So make sure
Ooh,
you're eating, at the perimeter. I'm sure everybody hears this already, right? Like broken record. You just want to eat what's in the perimeter of the grocery store. You're trying to go for your clean fruits, your clean vegetables, your nuts. I mean, everybody's diet is different. Some people don't do fruits and vegetables. Some people just eat strictly like meat. Some people don't eat any meat, and everyone is different. So there's no perfect way for every single person across the board. Like what works
I
for
don't think I thought about that before.
the
The
perimeter.
perimeter of the grocery store. That's so right though,
Yeah.
right? Like they do. They have like your fruits and your vegetables, and then there's like your meats and your fish, and then
Yeah.
your dairy around the outside, and then all that like crappy like cereal and
Mm-hmm.
other stuff is in the middle aisles. Okay, I like that.
I get you. I mean,
Shop the
sometimes you have to
perimeter.
peruse down an aisle to get some like breadcrumb, or like if I need a gluten-free breadcrumb or something, I'll go down one of those aisles. But the majority of the shopping I do is usually at the farmer's market. But if I have to go to a grocery store, it's on the perimeter.
Yes, and we both get the same farm share
Yes.
now.
Awesome.
So we had our first week last week,
Love it.
and so for me, I had been doing the carnivore diet, and I did it for like 2 months or so, like very strict, and
Mm-hmm.
then I opened it up a little bit and started having like avocado and then some nuts.
Yeah, girl, good for
But
you.
then I had stayed pretty limited on the other than that. And now that we had our farm share, I decided that those would be like the first vegetables that
Yeah.
I started putting in. Now there were some times when I did like when I was at a party, or one night my neighbor brought like some gluten-free pizza and I had a slice of that. And I really found that when I eat this pre-made stuff, it could be like the healthiest version of it, like this
Yeah.
gluten-free, whatever branded pizza it is, and I start getting itchy. I'm
Well,
like,
yeah.
like
They're
what's up
usually
with that?
cooking it in the oven that if you're gluten sensitive, like I mean, depending on your level of sensitivity, right? Like if you're cooking in the same oven where they're cooking the regular pizza, who doesn't love regular pizza, right? Like it's
Maybe you think that I think it's just that it's like even if it's like the healthy version of some pre-made thing,
Mhm.
it's like they have to put some preservatives into it or whatever it is. I cannot eat these pre-made foods. I
Yeah.
have to have either the whole food, right? Just eating apples or I mean it was very lettuce heavy this week. I had a bunch of
And
lettuce.
it will be next week too. I saw
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's lettuce season, by the way, guys. If you didn't know that, this is the
twice a day
season.
salad, so it doesn't hit the pail.
um, and so it seems like when I eat these whole foods that I prepare myself,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm good,
Yes.
right? But when I eat a salad from a restaurant, right? Because I had a salad at a party, whatever. They had ordered some salads from some place and had them delivered, and I had that and it didn't sit right with me. Like maybe it was the dressing or I don't know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I have had a very negative experience since I started broadening my diet anytime I try to eat food that's made somewhere else, unless it's just a slab of meat.
Yes.
Um and again, even like it depends on what oil they're cooking it in, I think. Like
Yeah.
if you're at a higher end restaurant, I seem to be good, but like if I was at like a bear burger, which I think like most people consider bear burger like pretty
They do.
healthy as far as restaurants,
They
but
do. They
I'm
love their
pretty
burger.
sure the oil that they use is not that good.
You could always call them up and find out what oils they're using in their foods in advance if you're like concerned. But like for small businesses, it's really challenging, especially now with how expensive everything is. So no shot to small businesses here, but it is challenging for them to get quality oil. So a lot of the times you're using like these highly processed, heated oils, and they're mixing it in. And although it tastes good, your body's like, no. Like it also depends on how sensitive your system is, right? So I've noticed that the cleaner I've eaten, the more sensitive I am to foods. Like you're saying, I'll be itchy. I'll get red in my face. My stomach won't feel right. And I thought I made a good choice because I'm always very conscientious for going out. Like, what am I eating? What am I putting in my body? Because my body is 100% my temple. So I feel bad for small businesses. They're doing what they got to do. Much love to them and thanks to them. Sometimes it's just how your body's going to react.
Yeah, and I think too there's something about preparing your food.
Mm-hmm.
I've been spending a lot more time just like in my kitchen making things. I'm starting to make sourdough bread. I made my first loaf tonight, which it's with
Oh.
einkorn flour, which is supposed to be low gluten, but I was still having like some issues with it, I
Mm-hmm.
think. So I'm gonna have to try to do just like maybe some gluten-free flour. But there was just like something about the process of like going through it takes several days, it takes like basically a week to like get your starter to the place where it's like yeasty enough. And then
Mm-hmm.
even when you make the loaf of sourdough bread, I like read the recipe and I was like, oh my god, like this is like uh, a whole day process,
Yeah.
right? Because you have to make the levain, and then you have to let it rise for 6 to 10 hours, or sit for 6 to 10 hours, and then you have to like put it all together, and then your dough bread has to rise, so that's another 6 to 10 hours, and
How much
then
do you appreciate the final product, knowing how much you're investing into it, of your time, your effort? It's just like that level of appreciation that goes into the final product too.
right, and but it just there was something about like slowing down,
Mm-hmm.
right, and appreciating the ingredients. Like I feel like a lot of times we're just like food is just like a slot machine or something. Like it's just
Mm-hmm.
like boop, we press a button and it comes out, and you're just like
Yeah.
you gulp it down, and you're like you're running from one meeting to the other, or like you're eating one of these bars where it's like who knows what the heck is in this bar, and you're just like stuffing it in your mouth as you're walking down the street or something. Like
Sugar.
I think that there's like definitely something to like connecting with your food. What do you
Mm-hmm.
think?
Absolutely. I think there's even like some science behind that and some research as to like when you're putting love into your food, it's better for you. You aside from the level of appreciation because you put all the effort into it and the planning, it also brings people together. I know growing up, cooking together as a family, baking together, holidays, regular meals, it just that increases the love. And I'm very into energy, that, and I think the energy that goes into your meal, you're taking that in, and you want that energy to be great energy and you want it to be fulfilling to you.
Yeah. So not just whole foods, but like thinking about how you prepare the foods. And I think also that's probably going to have to take a little bit of a shift in how you think about your schedule as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we are so used to just this instant gratification society,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
But you can't, again, like the whole reason why I thought this conversation was so important is because when I eat better, like my mind works better, right? And like
Mm-hmm.
to think free and to live free, we really have to have a free mind, which means we have to take care of our body. And so that, yeah, it's like a whole shift in mindset.
Absolutely.
Um,
Even what you're drinking, right? Like, are you drinking certain types of beverages that impact your brain and the functioning of it?
oh my gosh.
That's a whole.
Oh man, like when I have a sip of juice or something, woo, I'm like,
Oh, I like to use tap
whoa.
water, but yes, juice.
No, I know that's why I'm just drinking water here. This is filtered water. But I'm
Sure.
just saying, like, every once in a while, I'll like have a sip of juice or something like that, and I'm just like, oh my god, like, how do people drink a whole glass of this?
But
Like,
you've gotten yourself to the place where you have that awareness, where it hits you right away, and you're like, "Oh, that's right." Right? Where people who are just doing it every single day, they don't have that ability to hit that awareness and that mindfulness about it. And so, like, again, it hits you. You're like, "Oh, yes." And me too. Like, if I have something that is going to set me off in a way I'm just not feeling well, I'm like, "That's why I don't eat that all the time." Like,
right.
yeah.
Thanks for the reminder. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
guess like when you are like addicted to sugar and addicted to the food, like you have like a tolerance that's built up to it, right? Like if you're drinking a lot of alcohol, like it takes you more beers to feel the effects of alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
and food is the same way. If you're eating a lot of like kind of crappy food, you've built up your tolerance to that food versus like when you're eating more whole foods and having less sugar intake. I think like really like I can see it in my son. Like
Mm-hmm.
on days when he has a lot of sugar, and usually it's and like he eats a lot of fruit, but the fruit doesn't impact him the same way. Like when they're having like a donut and one of those like a ice pop, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just like the kid starts to really lose it. Like he
Right.
can't function.
The good news is there's cleaner ice pops, or you could just make your own, right? Like you're already in the
Right,
store.
yes, they
So,
definitely do that. That's a fun activity as well.
right, and then you're getting your family involved, and it becomes more
Yes,
wholesome, and you're putting great energy into your food, and it has
yeah,
benefits. Like it heals. You're healing your body.
yeah, he's very into cutting lately, like cutting like a fruit,
That's
like
cool.
cutting slices of bread or whatever the thing is. We're working on knife skills a lot.
Good for him.
And
That's awesome.
yes, he cut up the watermelon. So I cut obviously cut it in half and then cut the slices and like cut it
Mm-hmm.
out, and then he cut them into pieces. Um, Cutting his apples, he has to have them cut a certain way.
Of course. Yeah.
Apparently in cubes. When you have your apple in cubes, apparently it tastes better, he claims.
Cubes.
I don't know. It's like
Yeah, show me that.
yeah, I mean they're not perfect cubes, obviously. It's an apple and it has some round parts, but
Yeah,
yeah, he likes them cut up into like little like cheese cubes basically.
I got to see this. This is exciting. So I'm happy to eat them. I'm sure they do taste more delicious in the cube form.
And real quick before we move on to food, I
Mm-hmm.
have talked about this with some other people, but what is your opinion on like organic food versus non-organic food versus getting something from a farm share? Like how do you feel about these different labels, and how much weight and consideration do you think that people should put on them?
So I definitely think if and where possible to go organic. So like if you're going to the store and you see organic broccoli, let's not be fooled. It's not necessarily going to be like the true definition of what an organic piece of broccoli is going to look like. However, the level of chemicals that they're allowed to spray on organic It's a totally different category. They are still spraying it with something though, so let's not be naive into thinking it's like the perfect alternative. It's definitely so much better than a conventionally, chosen product. I will always opt for the organic when possible. It's not always in everybody's budget either. I personally, like in our farm share, it's an organic farm shared piece of lettuce, and I certainly do think maybe it's in my mind. I don't know. There's definitely a bigger or a better flavor in it. I think that is the cleanest way to go. I'm a big fan of regenerative farming, giving back to the earth, because the earth gives us so much a lot of the time, even with organic practices. It's like factory farming, even like the way the animals are raised on an organic farm. It's like pretty much almost like a cattle farm with organic feed, where it's not really the ancestral diet an animal was eating years and years ago, or the way produce was grown or harvested years and years ago. So I definitely think every label holds some weight. I certainly would avoid, personally, I would avoid conventional on most products, although there's the clean 15, you got your dirty dozen. But when possible, I would always choose to go to like farmer's market or do a farm share. But you definitely still have to ask questions, right? Like you can go to a farmer's market, and they're still spraying it with your really heavy chemicals. So, but the beautiful part is you're talking directly to the farmer and you're finding out what's actually happening. And you have more than one farmer to choose from. So
Okay.
I'm a big fan of asking questions.
It's farmer market season. Go out to your farmer's market, talk to the farmers. If you can get a farm share, like what we're in, and the farm does allow people to like go up and visit. I know, and they have like open farm days and stuff, so we could go up there. And then, if you're in a grocery store, you're saying organic label is better. Like, don't be fooled that it's perfectly clean.
Yeah.
It's still a brand. It's still something that you have to pay for, and they are allowed to spray up to a certain amount, right?
Yeah,
on these
specific
things.
kinds of chemical. Like it's not the same magnitude. It's not like your glyphosate spray. It's not like, I don't want to like name drop too many things. But it's not the same level. But I always tell people, like, just do the best you can, right? Like, it's also your intention. You don't want to go in there, even if you're eating a piece of conventional, because when you go out to eat, if you're eating something, you don't want to go in there eating it with fear. Because if you're eating something, you're like, oh my God, it's conventional, it's going to make me so ill. Like, the fear alone, like that mindset, that energy is what's really you're ingesting and what is going to have its negative effects on your body. But if you're like, you know what, my body is strong, it's fine. Like, I don't, it's all about your mindset going into it too. If you could only buy conventional, then I'm happy you're eating produce.
Right. And then you dropped. Okay, so you're saying like, hey, like look at your budget. And I mean, I'm scared to go to the grocery store right now. I'm like scared to think about the grocery store. It's like, it's so crazy. It's like I can get like 2 bags of groceries, and it's like, oh, $200, and I'm like, what the
what did you get? What did you really get? Right?
Yeah, for real. So, I mean, yeah, even this week I was like looking, I'm like, all right, well, I can get like 2.5 pounds of ground beef, like the conventional ground beef, or I can get like 1 pack of the, organic grass-fed stuff. And so I went for the conventional meat.
Okay.
And right now we're getting our farm share, which the prices aren't actually bad for the farm share. Like they're pretty good, and I split it with my neighbor. So, that's kind of like the split that I'm doing. What about you dropped like these 2 phrases that were like rhyming. What were those? It was like clean 15.
Oh, the clean 15 and the dirty.
Yeah. Yeah. Clean 15.
I just want to add something.
Dozen. Yeah.
I will get into the dirty dozen. It's just like a list that EWG puts out every year of the 12 most like highly sprayed pesticide type products. And then they have a clean 15 list. Now, all these are conventional products. But I always say, like, if I have to opt for something that's conventional, there's ways to mitigate some of the effects of the pesticides. So you can do like a baking soda bath, or, some people know it as just sodium bicarbonate. You take some baking soda, you throw it in some water, you mix it, and then you throw your produce in, and then you let it sit and you let it soak. And, it helps mitigate. And if you look at the water after, you do see things pop up. I mean, bugs are going to pop up, but that means if bugs pop up, that's a good sign, actually. Bugs, they're eating your produce. That's a very good sign if they want it. But you could certainly, if you're eating an apple and it's conventional, which is typically on the dirty dozen list, you could soak it in some baking soda, and it does get rid of a bunch of the residues that are on there. Now, There's also like the wax factor on things. So it depends on like how deep you want to go, but we don't want to stress each other out about it. We're just doing the best we can with the knowledge we're empowered with. So, that would be my next tip. But
All right, and I want to empower people to hit that like button like Terrible Schools. So make sure you do that for me. And if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. And I've got Regina's Instagram link down below. So make sure you're following her on Instagram for good daily tips so you can continue to build your knowledge and not stress yourself out, right? We don't want to throw too much at you.
that's
So
just
we've got the sleep part, we've got the whole foods, and then we dug in a little bit deeper into some nuance with those whole foods. What else you got for me?
So I like to say, listen to yourself, don't listen to the mainstream. So if you're like me and you're on social media and you're scrolling and you see all these influencers or, Consumer Reports will have this out and that out. How do you feel about things? When you eat something, how does it make you feel? Like influencers will push things, and a lot of the times they're helpful. So no disrespect to them at all. They are certainly helpful. They're filled with knowledge and they really are, it could be an inspiration. But sometimes what works for them is not going to work for you. So you want to be sure to like really listen to yourself. If that vibes well with you, what they're saying, maybe it's something worth trying. I mean, if it's something supplement wise, I would say like always check with a provider or practitioner first. You don't want to just start experimenting with things. But just really try to be in touch with yourself. And when you're eating clean, it's a lot easier to be in touch with yourself.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, I really like when that Hershey bar, hits my mouth. Like, it's so good, or whatever the thing is that does it for you. So obviously that's because it's filled with sugar, right? And so
we love chocolate though, or like a piece of candy or a salty crack or a chip. There's so many. We are so fortunate that we live in a time where there's some really nice alternatives out there, and because they are a treat and something we should have from time to time, or could have from time to time. There's so many better, cleaner options out there. So if you want,
so you're. If I want that chocolate, go make sure. Should I go harvest the cacao nibs and melt it down myself?
If you could do that, God bless. But I'm just gonna hit up Costco. There's a brand there that I like.
Okay. And so the only health and wellness influencer we should be following, you said, is you. Everybody else sucks. Is that what I got from that? No, I'm just kidding.
No, certainly not. There's smart ones out there that I follow influencers.
Yeah.
It's a community. It certainly is a health and wellness community. I just think a lot of the times it can be overwhelming. You're hearing so much information, and this is like the buzz thing right now, and it's like, it kind of puts us into that anxious state or apprehensive state, and it kind of gets in the way of making choices for ourselves. So I certainly love influencers. I just think it's really more important to listen to yourself too. And if what they're saying works for you and it vibes, then absolutely go for it.
Right. Like I just did the carnivore diet, and there's pages and people that you can find, like they're all about carnivore. They swear by it for everybody. And I may or may not do that to an extent. When I talk to people, I'm like, hey, you should try carnivore. It'll probably solve your problems, right? But then there's like the pages that are like vegan and like, like, oh, you should only eat plant-based foods, or like, and I've been seeing a lot of these pages lately that have been going hard on fruit, where like they're really pushing the fruit. And I'm like, that seems like a lot of sugar intake. I don't know, but I do like have a friend who she does not feel well when she eats certain types of meat in particular, right? And so she tried to go more like meat based, but like it wasn't really working for her. But when she like stuck to certain meats and then had like a lot of salads and vegetables and stuff, she felt like that was actually her more like prime place to be.
Prime example right there. What you're saying, like carnivore is not going to be for her. She had to modify it to make it more individualized so that she could feel good after eating. And like, that's really what's most important. And then when you were saying that you maybe sometimes push the carnivore on people, you're not doing it from a place of like arrogance or being condescending. You're really just wanting everyone to be healthy and there's a well-being. And you're like, oh, this worked for me. I want everyone to feel as great as I feel. And that comes from a place of love. So that's not necessarily a bad thing.
And I feel like a lot of it was actually about the elimination aspect of it. So it's like, maybe it's not just the meat for you. Like I eliminated everything out except for meat, but maybe you choose 10 or 15 or 20 food items and you just stick to those for
Yeah.
30 days or 60 days and see where that leaves you.
Yeah.
Because I do think it is helpful to kind of like get a baseline, and then, because when I felt like when I was just basically eating not anything, like I would say I was like, more healthy than your average person, but I wasn't able to feel the way that food affected me in the way that I can feel how it affects me now. Or
Mm-hmm.
I would just have an allergy attack and like every day anyways. um so, but I wasn't able to feel that one-to-one connection in the way that I can now. Like
Mm-hmm.
now, if I eat something and have an allergy attack, I'm like, oh, that thing that I ate gave me the allergy attack. Whereas before, I was just like, well, every day I'm having an allergy attack, so I'm going to take a Zyrtec, and I wasn't making that connection between what I was eating and what I was going through. So I do think there's certainly, you have to get down to a place to better your connection with food. And I also think that comes through the ways that you prepare your food too.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely. And again, it comes down to your awareness. Like you were not able, you were just taking that Zyrtec, which some people just have to do. And I get it. Allergies, a lot of them are in the gut, a lot of them are hormonal. It could be a multitude of factors. It's never just one thing that goes across the board. So, like, even with people who are trying to lose weight, it's not always just I'm eating bad food. Sometimes it's hormonal. Sometimes it's cortisol. Sometimes it's just maybe your food is too processed. Like, maybe you're just, there's so many factors into it. It's not the same for everyone.
and I feel like now when I take an allergy pill, like sometimes I have to because I like ate something and I'm like, well, this is gonna give me an allergy attack, or sometimes I just genuinely have allergies from the weather. We're
Mm-hmm.
getting a little bit past that season, but when I take a Zyrtec now, I'm like, whoa, like it hits me,
Mm-hmm.
and I can like feel that like veil of like whatever it's doing.
Yeah.
So I think like that's definitely something to think about too. Like, and I know I had a similar experience when I got off of my birth control, which I think we had to talk about previously. Didn't we talk about birth control in the
We
past?
definitely have talked about this.
Yeah.
I think we did it on
And
walk. I don't know if we did it on live.
okay, I feel like I had to talk, I feel like, with somebody online about it. Like getting off of birth control, I felt like an increase in the connection between my body and my cycle and just all of that. So I think that again, it's you don't have to do everything at once. I mean, this
No.
was many years ago now that I got off of birth control, and like only recently I even did this carnivore diet to like get in line with my food diet. So, but definitely just like step by step, one little thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, if you fall off track, like don't feel bad, like don't get so down on yourself that you're just like, oh well, it's all ruined.
Yeah, because what good is really going to come out of that, right? Like, and I'm sure that's more cyclical and more behavioral because when I fail, this is how I feel, and like you go into like the spiral effect of it all. And maybe if we make that one choice to not go into that spiral, that's where the change could start. You don't want to be going. You want to start breaking patterns.
mm, Breaking patterns. So Turbo School says that when he started to get his garden going, he was so excited he want everybody to know what he knew, and that nothing in the supermarket tasted as
For
good as
sure.
his garden.
There you go, Turbo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. Love that. We need to talk
brag
about
about
the garden. Like,
yeah brag
what's
about
the
that
minimum on
garden. And I feel like there was like during 2020, during lockdowns, like more people got into it. It was like kind of a trendy thing to do. But I don't know, it's weird that it was like it's like a trendy thing to do. I feel like back in the day, like everybody just had a garden. Like my grandma always had a garden growing up,
that? Mm-hmm.
and it was just like a regular thing.
Absolutely. They had fig trees, they had tomatoes, they had zucchini, they had it all. Like you just
Yeah.
went backyard, you went to the backyard and you got dinner. It was great.
All right, so what else you got for us? I lost track of how many
I think
tips
we're
you
on number
mentioned now.
4.
Okay, number 4. There we go.
Number 4 is go slow, right? There's so many changes that we think we have to throw at ourselves, and that overwhelm in itself could cause us to fail. So I always say, like, just start with, like, what's the thing that sticks out to you the most that you'd like to make that quick adjustment for? And we'll start there. And then ultimately, like, kind of like build. It's like, well, I did that and I like this. So now I kind of think I want to do that. So everything builds upon itself, and you don't want to rush into it. Instant gratification, in my opinion, it can be a recipe for disaster. You want long-term changes. So if the slower you go, I think the changes will last longer ultimately.
Yeah, I remember I read this study that it was like people who went to the gym every day, even if
Mm-hmm.
like every time they went, they didn't do like a super intense workout or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that, but they just built that habit. Over the long term, they were more healthy than the person who was like new year, new me, like went to the gym every day for those first 30 days and like or maybe not every day, but they went to the gym and like they were going super hard, but then they like burnt out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they just fell back into their old ways because they didn't truly burn up, like build that habit. They were just sort of like going off of that high of like, oh yeah, like I'm going super hard. Or I know even for my carnivore diet, that was like one of the things that they warn you about is like, you're gonna feel really good and like once you get going, but then you're gonna kind of like hit this wall.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like you gotta build up the habit, and you have to have that mental piece in place. I know for me, I did like a couple week transition where I did like 2 meals that were all carnivore and then like another meal that wasn't.
Were
And
you
I
slowly going into the carnivore diet?
Yeah, I did like a 2 week kind of like transition, and then I went full force into it, and I think that that definitely helped me. And then from there, like once I had the diet, like I've always been like wanting to get back into my workout routine, and
Did you
like
have?
yeah, recently I have, but it's like I couldn't do it like at the same time as my diet. Like I had this idea that I was going to do the carnivore diet and I'm going to start working out consistently, and it was just a lot with getting into that new habit of the carnivore and like just like general life going on.
Mm-hmm.
Once that stabilized, then I was able to like build on top of that and put into the workout piece. And
Yep.
even the workout piece, I've been taking it, slowly, one step at a time. And last week I was not feeling well, so I didn't really work out a lot. But
Mm-hmm.
now I'm feeling better. I'm feeling my energy back. I'm gonna get back into it. But like right before I wasn't feeling well, I don't know. I felt like I was like stepping it up in intensity, right? Like I wasn't going to in the beginning I wasn't going too hard with it. We just went on our walks and stuff, but then I started just doing a little bit of something every day. And then after a couple of weeks of doing that, I was like, oh, I think, like just naturally stepping up the intensity of things without putting the pressure on myself to do that.
Yeah, let me commend you for honoring your body when you weren't feeling well and you didn't push yourself to do something that was not in the best interest of your body, yourself in general. So you gave it the rest that it needed so that you can get right back into it. And full transparency, I was definitely one of those new year, new me girls. I probably had a Facebook status 20 years ago about it, 100%. But the problem with that was, how sore did you feel after your first 2 days of going hard at the gym? And then you're like, oh, I can't even move. I can't get out of bed. So that kind of then gets in the way. And then you're feeling bad. Like I said, I was going to do this and now I can't get out of bed to work out because I'm so sore. And then again, you start to go into that spiral, right?
Right.
So,
That cycle of excuses and like, oh,
mm-hmm.
next week or next year.
Yeah,
Next year I'll get
yeah,
it.
for sure. I mean, it happens, and you just gotta like remember, slow and steady wins the race. You will get there. Build on the habits. Habits don't start overnight. It takes a while for a habit to really stick, and then you'll have the awareness associated with that habit, and you can go into the next thing.
Yeah. What do you feel like an accountability partner? Do you
I
feel
think
like
that
that?
that is amazing. I think that
Yeah.
is great because whether you're getting the support that you're going to work out or that you're going to make a better food choice, you also get that support on when you don't feel well and you can't work out that day, or you didn't have the access to hit up the grocery store. So you had to like make something in a box that night, right? Like they keep you accountable, but it's also like the balance that goes into it. There must be balance in it all. Team
Yes.
accountability partner.
All right, Turbo Schools is telling us, what if instead of promoting the woohoo, they promoted that we should be gardening and exercising and getting our vitamins and our minerals? I know. Can you imagine? But
Mm-hmm.
instead, I think in some places the gardening was literally like, what was it called? It was not essential. Like you couldn't even get the stuff because it was considered not
Yeah, it was
essential.
blocked off in a bunch of the stores. But the truth is it should be taught in schools, and it definitely should be taught in schools because it's a part of life. It helps in so many different ways. It connects you with the earth. The mentioning of the minerals, our soil is so depleted of minerals, which is why I'm a huge fan of the regenerative farming practices, giving back to the earth that is always giving us so much.
Yes, but you are assuming that schools are supposed to prepare you to be smart and healthy and not a good NPC that follows mandates, man. All right, so take it slow, right? Build on habits, go for the long term, and some days it's just about showing up, and
Yeah.
maybe it's not necessarily about, going super hard at the workout or whatever the thing may be. And of course, if you have a day where you mess up, or I don't know, that midnight snack calls you, um, forgive yourself and move
Well,
on the next day.
let's talk about that for a second. Sometimes, especially if you're not someone who gets hungry at midnight, or because you're already in bed because of sleep regularity, if you need something in the middle of the day and you're like, well, I don't usually get hungry, and I'm really trying to avoid this. Sometimes, again, listen to your body. Like, why is your body craving something? Like, what does it really need? Your body communicates in these interesting ways. It sends you these signals, and don't be mad at it. Right? It's
Mm,
trying to tell you something. Try to understand it. Maybe it's like I want a piece of chocolate because I'm deficient in a mineral, so I need to figure out. So that's the quickest way for me to get that mineral in my system. And I'm not saying
mm.
go grab a piece of chocolate. I'm saying, although sometimes it happens. What I'm saying is like, try to listen to your body, understand it, and don't be mad at yourself for wanting or craving something. That's just maybe how your body's communicating.
Right.
It knows that's how you'll understand it.
To be dehydrated. My mom always used to say that, like when you come in and you ask for a snack and she's like, oh, go drink a glass of water,
Yeah,
right? Like you say,
yeah.
you probably are thirsty or something. My mom was always kept those snacks on lockdown.
Yes, stay
She was,
hydrated for sure. Make sure
yeah.
what you're staying hydrated with too is like quality, right?
Oh,
Like,
do you know what is a dope snack that I had though the other day
oh,
is so I took like a date and then I put peanut butter on it and then chocolate. Yo, tastes good. It almost tastes
that's
like,
awesome.
if you suspend your imagination a little bit, it almost tastes like a Snickers bar.
Okay, I like putting a walnut in the middle of the date.
Ooh, a walnut.
Yeah,
Okay.
a little wild.
Yes. I mean, dates have a lot of sugar in them. They're definitely high in sugar, but they're pretty, like, the thing about getting your sugar from a whole food like that is that it doesn't spike your insulin in the way that getting it from one of these candy bars or a glass of juice does.
And it's also the time that you put it in your body too. Everything is about timing. So sometimes you're just gonna be human. And you're just gonna have the date at 8 o'clock.
Yep, yep. And Gretchen Whitmer, and yeah, that in Michigan, that's where Michigan was one of these places that was like had all these crazy rules and regulations. I know here for sure, like the Home Depot, the garden section was open because I went and bought a bunch of stuff.
Thank God.
Uh, yeah,
It just seems
but
absurd. Like, what is the logic behind that, or like how is that legitimately founded or supported by anything? I don't understand it. I could be missing something.
yes, yes, we'll get back to you with that. All right, so what do you got to round us out here? What's tip number 5 for us about getting back to basics and getting in touch with our mind and our body?
So I always tell my clients to be gentle on yourself. Offer yourself grace along the way. It is a journey. Perfection is not something we strive for. We strive for just doing the best we can with what we have, and really be gentle on yourself because it's not always easy. Changing habits that have been ingrained in your system for decades at a time, because sometimes I work with clients who are, been around for decades, thank God. And it's ingrained. So be gentle. Offer yourself that grace along the way. Perfection just not something to strive for. I mean, you can try to get close. You want to be like the best version of yourself for sure. And you always want to be better than the version you were yesterday, but don't set yourself up for failure, and just love yourself throughout the entire process, because you are so deserving of that love. It doesn't matter if you make a mistake along the way. Love yourself. Your body loves you. It shows up for you every day. And just, remember that.
And how do you balance grace with accountability, right? How do you balance the gentleness with the with accountability? Because I feel like, you could kind of get into a habit of be like, well, I'm just giving myself grace, like, I got you. Regina told me to be gentle on myself, or like, how do you prevent that from like turning into excuses?
Because right? Like, when it's an excuse, and when it's grace. Like, you can feel it. Like, one comes from the brain, one comes from within. Like, with in your gut or your solar plexus, however you want to feel it. And you also know, like, if you're doing it one day, okay. If you're doing it 2 days, okay. Like, you start to notice the pattern. That awareness factor is so clutch. And I think that's, and then like, yourself, and if it's just an excuse day or if it's a grace day.
So keep it real, keep it 100 out there. Don't lie to yourself.
Yeah, if you're lying to yourself, you're just lying to yourself.
And you're not thinking free. You're trapped in the jail of your own creation.
100%.
Right. So keep it real, give yourself grace.
Yeah.
And yeah, because like that would be like one of like I grew up and I was like an athlete. I was like, pretty intense person. And so sometimes I hear people be like, oh, I'm just giving myself grace. It's a self-care day. And I'm like, go hard. Let's go. Like, get to it. Get her done. Who's that guy? You know who that guy is that's like always running shirtless?
David Goggins?
Yeah, David Goggins. Like, how do you feel about him and like his whole approach to everything?
He is the most strong, like, disciplined. Like, I certainly look up to him. Like, I know we had that conversation about influencers, but I definitely look up to him. I know I am not at that level, but he's definitely someone to look up to and an inspiration to stay on your path and to not quit. Because if you hear some of his stories, or if you hear just like how he runs marathons and his knees are like bone on bone, it's like, well, I guess I can go work out now. Like, I
feel like he should like give himself some grace. It seems like a little bit on like the super intense side of things.
Yeah, he's definitely more intense. I don't think he would like my line about offering the grace and
that's what I'm saying. He'd be like, shut the F up, get out there, do it.
Yeah, probably, but that's okay, right? Because everyone's different, and I think he's amazing. It's just I'm not there. It's not.
Right. And especially just like as an average person who doesn't make their money off of being like somebody on the internet who yells at people.
Right.
It's just not like a realistic standard for somebody who's like a working parent and, has bills to pay and has to go pick up their kids and all those types of things. So
that's not, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I've seen people do those like hard 75. Have you seen those things where it's like every day you gotta work out twice and one time has to be outdoors and like you gotta read 10 pages in a book? It's like, ooh.
I mean, if you want to throw in some reading there, like, I support that. Again, if it fits your lifestyle, if it fits you and you think that that's something that's going to work and you want to try it, like, go try it for sure. It's great. You don't know unless you try something, but you also have to feel aligned to it and while you're doing it.
And maybe it's something you build up to, right? Like maybe you've set really good habits with your eating and you've, worked yourself up in your workout and you've built up some of these other habits and then you do that, right? Like maybe it's not something like you just start out the gate, as you were saying, because it can be self-defeating.
These people are expert. Like, they are been in it for a while, so they know what they're doing. So when you're looking at them and then don't feel bad about yourself. Like, it took them a long time to get where they are too. And that level of discipline takes practice and experience to get to. So discipline's tough, but that's what you need to ultimately be successful.
All right. I feel like we did a pretty good job here reminding people of some basics, digging a little bit deeper, giving them some extra things to think about, if they're maybe a little bit further along on their journey. But I think that everybody could get something from this episode. And just remind yourself, I just find it so helpful, even when you know things, just to bring them to your consciousness, to talk about them, to reset those intentions. So I really appreciate you coming on here to do this. Where can, so we, I said people can find you on Instagram, but don't you,
Mm-hmm.
you have a website also? Can you plug your
Yes, yes.
website?
It's yourhealthyourwellnesscoaching.com. And feel free
Awesome.
to check it out.
And like what kinds of like things do you offer on there? Like what can people like what if yeah, what types of services, or do you have products or anything like that?
I don't do products on the website, but
Okay.
I do like I will go in and do like a pantry makeover in someone's house. It's just like I don't even know where to begin, and I'll go into their refrigerator, and I'll go into their pantry, and I'll be like, well, what level? How intense do you want me to go here? Like, do you want me to start? And I usually start small, right? Because I always say start slow, but I need to know ultimately at the end of the day, like, where do you want me to be when we're done with these sessions, or our time together? So, like, over the course of like 6 sessions, we'll start small, and then the next session I'll check in and I'll be like, okay, how do we want to go about this today? So I'm always guided by how the client wants me to handle that session and work with them. I don't just go in there like a bull in a china shop and like, oh, get rid of all the high
Get rid
fruit.
of this.
Like,
Get rid of this.
do that, right? Like everyone's just doing the best they can, and I respect everyone's choices. If you're reaching out to me, then you're already starting to try to make a great choice. So I do pantry makeovers. Obviously, I do the one-to-one health and wellness coaching. That could be like, just diet, lifestyle, exercise, spirituality, even relationships to a degree, all that kind of stuff. And then I'll do like workshops. Like workshops are definitely offer. Like we'll pick a topic. Like what does everybody want to work on? I'll go into like a book club or like Women of Fairfield, like a book club or something.
Mm-hmm.
And like just chat about what they want to hear about, and educate them as much as possible, because education is key here.
Yeah, education. And it also seems like a layer of accountability too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and we're all at different places with accountability, or have different relationships in our life. I feel like probably a lot of people do have somebody in their life that can hold them accountable, but sometimes it's like you don't want to be a burden on these other people and
Right.
things like that. So, okay, it seems like that you have a variety of different levels. I like the pantry makeover too. I think like a lot of times people think they're eating healthy things or think they're making healthy choices, but they don't actually know. Like, they'll buy like the low fat yogurt, and I'm like,
Right.
actually, you
Right.
should buy the full fat yogurt, my friend.
Right. Well, then you go into the whys, right? Like, well,
Right,
why? And
right.
then you get them to come up with the reasons. I don't tell people things necessarily. I get them to figure it out, but I know, like, I use a lot of motivational interviewing techniques, and then I get them to come to their own answers.
All right, so hit up Regina. Definitely follow her on Instagram. Check out her website. Maybe consider that. Again, there's a lot of different products and things that you can get out there, but I recommend Regina. She's definitely been somebody who's been key in my journey, helping keeping me motivated and building these small daily habits and reminding me, because sometimes I can be kind of intense on myself, right?
Yeah.
Give myself grace.
Well, thank you for
So
letting me be a part of the journey, not just this live, but thank you for letting me be a part of your life and this whole journey in general.
yeah, no, I'm excited, and I want to do the garden. You got to invite me over so we can do the garden.
Yes.
All right?
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
All right. Well, thank you, and thank everybody out there. And remember, if you haven't, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, all that good YouTube stuff. And until next time, think free, live free,